It was past midnight when the front door creaked open, barely audible, except to me. I was sitting in the dark, lit only by the street light bleeding through the window blinds. Rachel froze in the doorway like a thief caught mid-step. "Where were you?" My voice cut through the quiet like a blade. She blinked, clearly not expecting me to be awake. I told you I had dinner with Jen," she said, slipping off her coat too quickly. "We lost track of time, that's all." I stood up slowly. "Dinner with Jen? You told me she was out of town this week." She flinched. Not a big reaction. Barely noticeable. But enough. I saw it. She came back early," Rachel replied, brushing her hair behind her ear. "Surprised me too. So you didn't think to text? Call." I stepped forward. "You always text." "Always." She shrugged, avoiding my eyes. "My phone died. I didn't want you to worry." I just stared at her. "You expect me to believe that?" "Ethan, don't start," she said, her voice dipping low, the warning tone she always used when she wanted to shut things down before they got uncomfortable. "You're being paranoid again." I laughed, bitter and hollow. "Right? Because asking where my wife has been all night without notice is paranoia now?" She crossed her arms. "Why do you always do this? Twist everything? I didn't do anything wrong." "I don't know what you did," I replied, stepping even closer. "That's the point. You don't lie like this. You don't stammer unless there's something you're covering." Rachel's eyes darted toward the hallway, maybe hoping this would blow over, that I'd let it go like I had before. But I didn't. "I can smell cologne that isn't mine," I said quietly. Her jaw clenched. "You're imagining things." "Don't insult me, Rachel." There was a long silence. I could feel the distance stretching between us, wider, colder, solidifying with every breath. She finally looked at me, her expression suddenly stone. "I'm not going to stand here and defend myself against something that isn't real. You want to believe the worst of me? Fine. But I'm not cheating on you." "And I'm not sure I believe you," I replied. Not angry, not loud, just final. Her mouth opened like she wanted to fight. But she didn't. Instead, she turned away, brushing past me. I stood in the living room long after she'd disappeared down the hall, the silence humming like electricity in the walls. I wasn't the type to jump to conclusions. I paid the bills on time. I cleaned the gutters, showed up to my job every day at the firehouse, and spent Sundays fixing things I didn't even care about, just to keep life running smoothly. But something had broken tonight. Not with noise, not with shouting. Just a quiet snap, right there, inside me. And I knew one thing as I stared at the closed bedroom door. I couldn't unfeel this. I couldn't unknow that something didn't fit anymore. And whatever came next, this was only the beginning. The morning light came in soft and gold through the blinds, catching the edge of the suitcase I'd pulled from the closet. I didn't rush. Every shirt I folded, every pair of socks rolled and tucked, felt like a decision made weeks ago. Behind me, the house was quiet, too quiet. Rachel hadn't gotten up yet. Or maybe she had, and just didn't know what to say. I zipped up the first bag and moved on to the second. "Ethan." Her voice came small from the doorway, barely more than a whisper. I didn't turn. "Can we talk?" she asked, stepping inside. Her feet were bare on the hardwood. She hadn't even bothered to put on a sweater over her sleep shirt. "Please. I think we passed talk last night," I said, folding a hoodie and laying it gently on top. "You're leaving? Just like that?" Her voice broke, cracking through the calm. "You won't even try to work through this?" Now I turned. Slowly. "I'm not the one hiding things, Rachel." She came closer. "You don't even know if there's something to hide." I gave her a long look, quiet but firm. Exactly. Her eyes filled fast. I'd seen her cry before, once during her father's funeral, another time when her sister's baby was born with complications. But this wasn't like those. This was fear. This was desperation. She grabbed my arm. "Please don't do this. Please, Ethan, we can fix this. You're upset, and I get it, but walking out won't solve anything." I pulled my arm back, not harsh, but steady. "I'm not upset. Not anymore. I'm just done being confused. Done doubting what I feel every time you look me in the eye and still lie." Her tears spilled now. She sank onto the edge of the bed, pressing her palms against her face. "I didn't lie. I didn't cheat. I swear to you. You disappeared without telling me," I said, crouching to zip the final bag. "You came home wearing someone else's scent. You've been distant for months, Rachel. You think I didn't notice?" "I told you. I went out with Jen, who was out of town." You forgot what lie you told. I cut in gently. She looked up, eyes red. So that's it. One bad night, and you throw everything away? One bad night. I repeated, quieter now. No. One night confirmed what I've been feeling for weeks. That I'm living next to someone I don't recognize anymore. Rachel stood, walked toward me with trembling hands. You can't leave me, Ethan. You're my husband. I picked up the suitcase. And you were my truth, I said. Until you weren't. That's when her strength cracked. She fell to her knees, hands gripping my pant leg like a lifeline. Please, don't do this. I love you. I knelt down slowly, placed one hand on hers, and spoke with more calm than I thought I had left in me. Then you should have fought for us before it came to this. Outside, the sun was warming the sidewalk. I rolled the suitcase behind me, stepped into the car, and drove across town to a small apartment complex tucked behind an old bookstore and a laundromat. It wasn't much, just one bedroom, second floor, barely enough room for my tools and gear, but it was mine. My own space. My own air to breathe. The landlord handed me the key with a half smile. Not fancy, but it's quiet, he said. Quiet's all I'm looking for. That night, I stood in the middle of the empty living room, the faint hum of a street lamp flickering outside the window. No sounds, no voices, no pretending, just silence. Not the kind that weighs you down, the kind that tells you you're starting over. The smell of roasted coffee beans and fresh pastries clung to the air as I stepped into Heart and Grind, the cafe 2 blocks from my new place. Quiet music played overhead, some soft acoustic track that made everything feel softer than it really was. Mr. Lawson was already waiting, seated at a back booth with a leather briefcase beside him. Gray suit, maroon tie, and glasses with a matte black frame that made him look like a professor rather than the high-stakes divorce attorney I'd been referred to. He stood when I approached. Ethan Marsh. That's me. I shook his hand. Firm grip, no nonsense. Have a seat. Coffee's on me, he said, sliding a black notebook toward him as I sat across from him. So, I've looked at the summary you emailed. No children involved, no prenup. That makes things simple, on paper. Emotionally, that's another beast. I'm not interested in dragging Rachel through the mud, I said quietly. I need the truth. And peace. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Honorable. But if you want the upper hand in court, especially if you're suspecting infidelity, you're going to need evidence. Proof. Allegation isn't enough. I looked out the window, watching a kid tie his dog's leash to a bicycle rack. She won't admit it. I already asked. Most don't, he said. That's why people hire guys like me. Or investigators. I can recommend someone discreet. I'll do it myself. Mr. Lawson blinked once. You sure? I nodded. I know her schedule. Where she shops, where she works out. I'll know if something's off. He leaned back, tapping his pen against the notebook. All right, but here's what I'll say. Don't go in hoping for answers. Go in looking for clarity. Sometimes what you don't find is just as important as what you do. I left with a legal pad of notes and a quiet ache in my chest I hadn't expected. It wasn't rage pushing me anymore. It was curiosity. That's what betrayal does to you. It doesn't just hurt. It haunts. Over the next few days, I became something I never thought I'd be, a shadow. Rachel's car still sat in the same driveway we used to share. Every morning at 7:30, she left for her yoga class at a studio on Spruce and 15th. She stayed exactly an hour and 15 minutes. Then drove straight to the Trader Joe's on York. She always came out with the same canvas bags, packed with fruit, wine, eggs, kale, just like always. On Thursday, I watched her stop by her sister's place. They sat out on the porch for nearly an hour, sipping coffee and laughing. I snapped a picture, even though there was nothing scandalous about it. It just felt like part of the process, cataloging the ordinary. Friday night, I followed her car downtown, thinking maybe she was meeting someone. But she just parked by the lake, walked to a bench, and sat there alone for over an hour. She didn't call anyone, didn't text, just stared out over the water like she was waiting for something that never came. I sat in my car 100 feet back, engine off, watching her silhouette in the streetlight. The part that scared me most? A piece of me still wanted to go sit beside her, to ask what she was thinking, to believe her again. But I didn't. I just watched. And still, nothing added up. Every move she made looked innocent, predictable, but that whisper in my gut never stopped repeating itself. Something's not right. The following Monday, I took all my notes, every location, timestamp, photo, and handed them to Mr. Lawson. He flipped through them, brow furrowed. She's either extremely clean or extremely clever. What now? I asked. Now we wait, he said. Sometimes, when they think they're in the clear, that's when the cracks start to show. I nodded. But deep down, I wasn't sure which scared me more, catching her red-handed, or proving she never did anything wrong, and still feeling this far gone from her. It was just after 7 when I heard the knock at my apartment door, 3 soft taps, then silence. When I opened it, there she was. Rachel, wearing an old green hoodie I recognized instantly. It used to be mine. Her eyes were puffy, makeup streaked from crying, and in her hands was a cardboard box, edges worn from time and probably second thoughts. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped aside without a word. She walked in slowly, her gaze scanning the modest place I now called home. No framed pictures on the walls. Just a single chair, a small table, the couch I'd found on Craigslist, and a kettle whistling gently on the stove. Is this really where you've been staying? She asked quietly. I nodded once, closing the door behind her. It works. She sat on the couch like she remembered it, though it was never ours. Then, without another word, she placed the box on the coffee table and pulled the lid off. Inside our life. Photos from the wedding. A picture of us on a beach in Oregon, wind in our faces, her laughing so hard the camera caught her mid-blink. Notes we'd written to each other in the first year. The Christmas ornament we bought together in New York. She reached in and held up a photo of us sitting on the front porch of our old house, legs tangled like teenagers. We were happy, she said, voice shaking. Weren't we? I stayed quiet. She looked up at me, her eyes begging. I didn't come here to fight. Ethan, I miss us. I miss the way you used to talk to me. I miss how you'd kiss my shoulder in the mornings before I got out of bed. I miss being safe. I sat across from her, not leaning in, not leaning away. Then why did you break it? I didn't. She snapped quickly, then caught herself. I mean, not on purpose. I made mistakes, but I didn't cheat on you. And this box, she gestured toward it. This is proof that we had something real. I looked at the photos, but didn't touch a single one. Memories don't fix the present. Then tell me what does, she said, her voice cracking. Tell me what I can say that'll make you stop looking at me like I'm someone else. I took a deep breath, steady and controlled. The truth, Rachel. Just say it. Whatever it is. Her face twisted. I am telling you the truth. I've asked you 3 times, I said. And every time, I get a different version of where you were that night. Why you didn't text. Who you were with. So either you're lying, or you're hiding something that looks a whole lot like lying. Her hands gripped her knees tightly now. You want something to be wrong. That's what this is. I want peace, I said simply. I want closure. And I'm not getting it by pretending your answers make sense. She stood up fast, eyes wild with frustration. You're paranoid, Ethan. You've created this story in your head, and now you're chasing ghosts. There's nothing there. Just your ego and some stupid insecurity whispering that your wife couldn't possibly love you the same. The room pulsed with the sudden heat of her words. I didn't move. I just let the silence settle. I came here hoping we could. I don't know. Remember, she said, her voice softening again. But all you want is a confession for something I didn't do. I looked at the box one last time, then met her eyes. Then you should have no problem saying it straight. She didn't. Instead, she picked up the lid, shoved it back on the box, and turned toward the door. I should have known, she muttered, almost to herself. You don't want the truth. You just want to win. And with that, she left, slamming the door a little harder than she meant to. I didn't chase her. I sat there for a long time, staring at the box full of memories sitting in the dark like a monument to what we used to be. And all I could think was, that wasn't a confession, but it wasn't innocence either. The loft was lit with hanging bulbs and the low hum of music pulsing from a vintage speaker near the bar. Somewhere between the hum of conversation and the smell of clove cigarettes and birthday cake, I stepped in unnoticed. I wasn't here to make a statement. I was just a name on the invite list. That's how Rachel's friends preferred it, pretending nothing had unraveled, that I was still one half of a polished couple who brought dip to game night. I poured myself a drink, kept to the edge of the crowd, and watched. Rachel was across the room in a navy blue dress, laughing too loud at something a guy with designer glasses had said. Her hand grazed his arm in that familiar, casual way, the kind that used to mean she was comfortable not interested. But tonight, it read differently. Naomi stood nearby, Rachel's longtime friend, striking and sharp-tongued. She wore a fitted burgundy dress and a smile that looked like it could slice a man open if she wanted to. I gave her a polite nod. She raised her glass. Didn't think you'd show. Wasn't sure I would either, I replied. I'm glad you did, she said, and something about the way she said it made me pause. The birthday crowd was buzzing. Someone started a game of dares, half-drunk adults reliving college chaos. I moved toward the wall, happy to be invisible. But Naomi wasn't done. In a lull between turns, she turned sharply toward the group and pointed. Ethan. Heads turned. Rachel looked up. I dare you, Naomi said, voice smooth, to kiss me. The room stilled. Even the music felt like it turned down a notch. I blinked. Naomi. But she was already stepping forward. Before I could fully process the moment, her lips were on mine. Confident, deliberate, and not pretending. Gasps erupted. A few laughed, unsure if this was a joke or a scene. When she pulled back, Rachel's voice cut the room like a whip. What the hell do you think you're doing? Her face was flushed, stunned, and something far more dangerous. Naomi didn't flinch. She turned to Rachel with the same smirk still on her lips. Oh, come on, she said lightly. Just like you dared to sleep with my husband. The silence cracked. Rachel's eyes went wide. Naomi, stop. But Naomi didn't stop. She stepped closer. You think I didn't know? You think you could keep that little secret buried just because you deleted a few texts? Guess what? He kept his. The birthday girl muttered, "Oh my God," under her breath. Someone dropped their drink. I didn't say a word. I just grabbed my coat, slid it on slowly, and walked toward the door. No rush. No reaction. Just a hallway of frozen faces and one truth that had finally cracked the surface loud enough for everyone to hear. Behind me, Rachel shouted my name. But I didn't look back. Because sometimes, silence says everything. I hadn't made it halfway down the block before I heard the door slam open behind me. Ethan, wait. I kept walking, slow and steady, the cool Denver night brushing against my face like a quiet reminder. You're free. Her heels clicked fast behind me. Please, Ethan, don't walk away. I stopped. Not out of sympathy. Just to let it end right here on my terms. Rachel caught up, slightly breathless. Don't listen to Naomi. She's bitter. She's always been jealous of us. I turned to face her. Us. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I mean, of what we had. Her eyes were wild, darting between mine, scanning for some soft corner to crawl back into. You kissed her, she said, right in front of everyone. What was that? That, I said evenly, was nothing. Her jaw clenched. Then why do it? I didn't, I replied. She did. And I didn't stop her because, truth is, none of it matters anymore. Rachel stared at me, eyes narrowing. You think you're above this now? That you're some wounded saint walking around in silence while the rest of us fight to feel something? I didn't respond. I didn't need to. You want the truth? She said, stepping closer. Fine. I made a mistake. A stupid, human mistake. But you, God, Ethan, you're so cold. You don't yell, you don't cry. You just watch. Like some statue waiting for everyone else to ruin themselves. She jabbed a finger toward my chest. You always wanted to be perfect. The calm one. The fixer. But you know what? That doesn't make you strong. That just makes you forgettable. I let that hang in the air. She was breathing hard now, red in the cheeks. You filed for divorce? I nodded. When? Last Tuesday. She blinked like the words hit harder than she expected. You didn't even tell me. I didn't need to, I said. You told me everything the moment you lied. Everything after that was just noise. Her lips curled. You smug, self-righteous. I took a step back. Don't. Her voice cracked again. You're really walking away? I already did. Rachel looked around, as if hoping someone would step in, press pause, rewind the moment. But no one came. Just the buzz of streetlights and the faint hum of music leaking from the loft upstairs. Her eyes filled, not with tears this time, but fury. You think you've won, don't you? No, I said. This wasn't a game. I turned again, my footsteps quiet against the concrete. Behind me, she stayed frozen. And I knew that would be the last time I'd hear her run after me. Not because she'd let go, but because she finally realized. I already had. The courthouse didn't feel like a battleground, more like a waiting room for endings. I sat alone at the front of the courtroom, one hand resting on the polished oak table, the other loosely gripping a pen I hadn't used once. Mr. Lawson leaned beside me, flipping through a binder of neatly labeled tabs, unbothered. To him, this was routine. To me, it felt like the final breath of something that had once been my life. Across the aisle, the chair reserved for Rachel sat empty. "She's not coming," Lawson said quietly, not even looking up. I gave a faint nod. We'd waited 15 minutes past the scheduled start time, just to be sure. But deep down, I already knew. Not because she told me, not because she warned me, because silence had become her favorite kind of punishment. And this was just another way to pretend like none of it mattered. Judge Bell strode in, thick glasses, sharp voice. "This is the matter of Marsh versus Marsh, dissolution of marriage. Petitioner present. Respondent absent." She adjusted her robe, then gave a firm glance my way. "Proceed." Mr. Lawson stood and moved through the facts like he was reading off a grocery list. "Your Honor, the respondent was notified of today's hearing 3 separate times. Certified mail, electronic delivery, and a voicemail confirmation left with a timestamp. No contact. No attempt to reschedule. My client is prepared to move forward." Judge Bell nodded. "Go on." Lawson handed over a folder. "Included are financial records, evidence of breach of marital trust, and witness testimony. We also have digital correspondence confirming extramarital conduct. My client is not requesting spousal support. He's asking for retention of shared assets and full legal closure." "Witness?" the judge asked. The back door of the courtroom opened quietly, and in walked Naomi, heels echoing down the aisle, hair tied back like she was ready for war. She took the stand without drama, swore in without hesitation, and looked directly at the judge. "My name is Naomi Ellis. Rachel Marsh was my best friend for 11 years. I found out, by accident, that she had been having an affair with my husband." She paused. No tears, no dramatics, just precision. I confronted him. He admitted to it, said it started in early spring. I recovered deleted messages from Rachel's old phone, photos, texts, even a calendar entry where they'd planned to accidentally run into each other while Ethan was out of town. She pulled out a folder and passed it to the clerk. Judge Bell flipped through it in silence. Her eyes scanned every page, every timestamp, every truth I hadn't managed to catch. "I understand this is emotional," the judge said calmly. "But is there any doubt in your mind that this affair occurred during the marriage?" "None," Naomi said. "She betrayed both of us." "Thank you." Naomi stepped down, walked past me slowly, and gave a small, steady nod. Not pity, not pride, just acknowledgement. Like, "You're not crazy. It happened. And you were right." The rest was fast. Legal language, asset breakdowns, summary decisions. "In the absence of the respondent," Judge Bell said, "the court grants the petitioner, Ethan Marsh, retention of the marital home, the vehicle registered under his name, and the shared savings account. The respondent forfeits her claim by failing to appear and by demonstrated misconduct." The gavel came down like a quiet, final heartbeat. "That's it?" I asked Lawson as we walked out into the lobby. He nodded. "That's it. No last-minute speeches. No fireworks. No closing scene with the guilty party begging for another chance. Just an empty chair and a decision she didn't even bother to contest." Rachel's silence wasn't a surrender. It was defiance. And somehow, it hurt more than any lie she ever told. It had been 3 days since the hearing. 3 days since the gavel dropped, since the papers were stamped, since Rachel chose to disappear instead of face what she broke. I hadn't really moved much from my usual place on the apartment couch. Same black coffee. Same playlist humming low through the speakers. Same quiet, except now. It wasn't heavy anymore. I was sitting by the window that afternoon, watching the cars inch past on 14th Street, when I heard a knock, 3 sharp taps. Not rushed, not uncertain. I opened the door, and there she was. Naomi, hair pulled into a messy bun. No makeup this time. Just a gray hoodie and jeans, and that same expression she wore on the stand, measured but honest. "Got a minute?" she asked. I stepped aside, letting her in. She walked in like she wasn't sure if this was a good idea, but she was doing it anyway. "Nice place," she said, glancing around. "You've got that minimal post-divorce chic going." I gave a small smirk. "Goes well with unresolved trauma and bad sleep." She grinned a little, then got serious. "I wouldn't have come by unannounced, but I thought you should know something. I waited. Rachel, she said slowly, is seeing Marcus. It took me a second to place the name. Marcus, I repeated. As in, you're Marcus? Naomi nodded, like she still didn't believe it either. They've been seeing each other for weeks. I thought it was just rebound stupidity, but turns out they're a thing now. I sat down slowly on the arm of the chair, eyebrows raised. She cheated with your husband, then turned around and started dating him once it all blew up? Pretty much, she said. Like a twisted sequel no one asked for. I exhaled a short laugh. Wow. Naomi looked at me, something new flickering behind her eyes, part fury, part curiosity. There's a party next weekend. Our friend Cassie's engagement thing. They'll be there. I leaned back, arms folded. Let me guess, you want me to come. I want you to walk in with me, she corrected. Not out of revenge. I'm done with that. But sometimes it helps to let people see what they gave up. Her words landed gently, but they didn't feel like a setup. They felt like a choice. You're sure this isn't a trap? I asked, half joking. Naomi smiled, but there was something soft in it this time. If it were a trap, I'd have worn heels and brought tequila. I studied her. Naomi, the woman who just weeks ago was a stranger at a party, and now, the only person who understood the very specific kind of betrayal I was still unraveling. I nodded. All right, I'll go. She tilted her head. That easy? You're offering a chance to show up without saying a word. I like that kind of peace. We stood there for a second too long, the silence not awkward, just full. Then she stepped back toward the door. Saturday night. I'll pick you up. I raised an eyebrow. I'm capable of driving. Humor me, she said, her grin returning. You've been the calm one long enough. Let me be in charge of this one. She left with a quiet wave, and the second the door clicked shut, I looked around my empty apartment and realized it didn't feel as empty anymore. Not because of the furniture, but because someone had just walked in, looked at all the wreckage, and didn't flinch. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and the sound of music, laughter, and clinking glasses spilled in. The rooftop was lit like a magazine spread, string lights hanging over polished concrete, glass railings framing the Denver skyline. It was the kind of place Rachel used to love. Glittering, curated, full of people who pretended better than they lived. I stepped out with Naomi beside me. She wore black. Not flashy, not loud. Just sleek and sharp, like closure stitched into fabric. Her arm slipped around mine without a word. I didn't need to ask if she was ready. We both were. Heads turned as we moved through the crowd. Not dramatically, but you know when people sense a shift in the air? That was us. I caught sight of Rachel near the bar. She was laughing, until she saw us. Her smile vanished like smoke in the wind. Beside her stood Marcus. His arm was resting on the bar, trying a little too hard to look relaxed. He straightened when he spotted Naomi, and then his eyes landed on me. That was the first crack. Naomi didn't stop. She led us right into the center of it all, through their line of sight, her hand still resting lightly on my forearm, like we weren't walking into the middle of a long-buried landmine. Rachel took a sharp step forward, heels clicking. Seriously? Naomi turned casually, her smile polite. Oh, hey, Ratch. Fancy seeing you. Rachel's eyes darted between us, jaw tight. What is this supposed to be? I tilted my head calm. It's an engagement party. We were invited. Her voice dropped. You're here together? Naomi blinked slowly. Is that a problem? Before Rachel could fire back, Marcus shifted beside her. Maybe this isn't the time, she spun on him. Don't talk. You don't get to talk right now. Rachel, he muttered, eyes flicking toward the surrounding guests. Not here. No, now, she hissed. They're flaunting this in our faces, and you're worried about appearances? Marcus took a step back, arms half raised. We're not even official. You said we weren't labeling anything. Oh, you're backing out now? She snapped, her voice climbing. You couldn't wait 2 seconds before crawling into her bed, and now you're acting like I forced you into this. Guests were pretending not to stare, but their heads were all tilted slightly, drinks held halfway to lips. Naomi leaned toward me. Popcorn would be nice. Rachel turned back toward us, voice shaking. Is this what you wanted? Both of you? No, I said. This isn't what I wanted. But it's what you built. Rachel opened her mouth, then hesitated. For a split second, the anger drained, and underneath it was something worse. Embarrassment. She turned toward Marcus. Say something. But Marcus had already stepped away, muttering, I'm not doing this. And just like that, he disappeared into the crowd, leaving her alone. Rachel stood there, exposed, furious, humiliated. And for the first time since this whole thing began, she had no one to play to. No defense to throw up. No audience that didn't already know the story. Naomi touched my arm lightly. Let's go. I gave Rachel one last look. Not smug. Not cold. Just finished. Then I followed Naomi toward the far edge of the rooftop, away from the lights and the noise. The city looked wide and quiet from up here. I didn't expect him to bail like that, Naomi said softly. I did, I replied. He cheated on his wife. He was never built to stay. She turned toward me, the skyline reflected in her eyes. And you? You staying? I looked at her for a long moment. Yeah, I think I am. The Denver night had cooled since we stepped off the rooftop. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and city dust. One of those quiet evenings where everything feels still. I unlocked the car with a soft beep. Naomi slid into the passenger seat like she'd been there before. She hadn't, but it didn't feel like the first time. We sat for a second before I started the engine. No rush, no pressure. Just two people breathing easy after watching a storm finally blow itself out. I half expected her to throw a drink, Naomi said as I pulled out into the street. I smirked. She would have, if it wouldn't stain the dress she rented. That made her laugh, and not the polite kind. The real kind. The kind that says, I needed that. I have to admit, she said, brushing hair out of her face. There was a small, petty part of me that hoped she'd chase after Marcus and fall down in the process. I glanced over. And yet you kept your heels on the whole time. Impressive. She nudged my arm. You're not bad at this. At what? Talking. Laughing. Making it not feel like we just walked out of a courtroom-level awkward situation. I shrugged lightly. We've had worse. She leaned her head back against the seat, looking out at the passing lights. You ever think we'd end up here? In my car. In this weird, in-between chapter, she said. Not married. Not broken. Just finding what's left. I didn't answer right away. I was thinking too much. I thought I'd be angry longer. I finally said. Thought I'd want to burn it all down. And now? She asked, watching me carefully. Now. I paused, then smiled. I'm just glad it's over. Whatever it was. She nodded like she understood. Because she did. After a few blocks, she turned to me again, a little lighter now. So, can I ask something a little less poetic? Sure. You doing anything tomorrow night? I glanced over, raising an eyebrow. Why? You planning a second public scandal? She laughed, then shrugged. Just dinner. Somewhere quiet. No drama. No rooftop revelations. Sounds suspiciously healthy, I said. Don't get used to it. We pulled up in front of her place. A modest walk-up, porch light flickering above the door like a sleepy lighthouse. She unbuckled her seatbelt, but didn't open the door right away. You'd like the place, she said. Got this weird little sunroom I turned into a reading nook. Feels like a treehouse when it rains. Sounds like the kind of place where people start over. Her eyes lingered on mine. You'd know something about that. I gave a small smile. Dinner sounds good. She opened the door, but paused before stepping out. Pick me up at 7? I'll be there. She shut the door gently, walked up the stairs without looking back. Confident. At ease. Like someone finally stepping out of the shadow of old choices. I waited until her porch light flicked off. Then I drove home, windows cracked, cool air drifting in. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't carrying anything heavy. 3 years. That's how long it's been since that rooftop party. Since the last words Rachel ever said to me. Since I walked away, not just from her, but from the life I thought I was supposed to fight for. Now, there's music playing in the kitchen. Naomi's barefoot, dancing while stirring a pot of something that smells like garlic and lemon. The record player skips every now and then, but she likes it that way. Says it makes the house feel alive. I'm sitting on the edge of the couch, tying up a loose hinge on the cabinet drawer she broke last week, trying to open it with her elbow. She claims it was a creative choice. This house isn't big. It's nothing flashy. 2 bedrooms, one of which we turned into a studio full of paintbrushes and unread books. The backyard's a mess of wildflowers and weeds we pretend are intentional. There's a porch swing Naomi found at a garage sale. I fixed it up, and now it's her favorite place to sit during storms. We don't talk much about the past anymore. Not out of denial. Just peace. Sometimes, when it rains hard, I still remember the night Rachel came home late. her keys shaking in her hand. The way my instincts screamed even when my heart wanted to believe her. And then I remember everything that followed. The silence. The unraveling. The moment the truth finally stopped hiding. Funny thing is, Naomi and I never rushed anything. We weren't trying to fall into love. We were trying to find air. But somehow, in the quiet, in the laughter, in the honest things, we built something steady. Not perfect, but real. Sometimes, pain doesn't teach you what to avoid. It shows you where to stand when the dust settles. Naomi turns and points the wooden spoon at me. You're thinking too loud again. I smile. Just grateful. She walks over, kisses my forehead. Dinner in 10. As she turns back, sunlight hits the kitchen window just right, scattering gold across the counter, the floor, the space between us. And I think, maybe that's the lesson. Some endings aren't punishment. They're rescue. And that was the end of my story. But I keep thinking about Naomi, how she stood up in court and told the truth, even when she didn't have to, even when it reopened every wound she'd worked to close. She could have stayed quiet, kept her distance, but instead, she chose to speak. Do you think she did the right thing? Let me know in the comments. And if this story meant something to you, hit that like button and subscribe. There's more where this came from.